Karlie Guse was just 16 when she vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of confusion, unanswered questions, and haunting theories that still divide investigators and her community to this day. Her disappearance wasn't just a mystery, it became one of the most chilling unsolved cases in recent memory, where every clue seemed to vanish as quickly as it appeared, and the truth continues to hide in the silence of the desert. Karlie Guse was 16 years old when her ordinary life suddenly became the center of a chilling mystery. She lived with her family in a quiet desert town, where everyone seemed to know one another and the rhythms of daily life rarely changed. Her days were filled with school, time with friends, and the restless energy of a teenager who dreamed of more than the small world she inhabited. She often spoke about wanting to explore new places, to live in a bigger city, to break away from the sameness of her surroundings. Despite her youthful ambitions, no one expected that she would one day vanish without a trace, leaving behind only questions and fear. The night before her disappearance began, like so many others. She was home with her family, safe in the familiarity of her bedroom, surrounded by the belongings that defined her teenage world. Posters lined her walls, her favorite clothes were scattered across a chair, and her phone, like that of any teenager, was rarely out of reach. Yet by morning, the routine was shattered. When her parents went to check on her, Karlie was gone. Her bed was empty, her room eerily silent. Her shoes were missing, as was her phone, but her wallet and personal identification sat untouched on her desk. It was as if she had walked out into the early dawn, with no plan and no intention of returning. Panic set in immediately. The family searched the house, the yard, and the streets nearby, calling out her name, hoping she might reappear. There was no sign of her. Neighbors were contacted, and soon the search widened. With each passing hour, the fear deepened. The desert landscape that surrounded their community stretched endlessly in every direction, a place where it was easy to disappear and nearly impossible to be found. The emptiness of that terrain felt like a cruel accomplice, hiding whatever had happened to Karlie. News of her disappearance spread quickly. In a small town, every incident ripples outward, and this was no ordinary incident. A missing 16-year-old was something that shook everyone to their core. Flyers were printed and distributed almost immediately, her smiling face appearing on poles, storefronts, and bulletin boards. Friends posted desperate pleas on social media, begging anyone with information to come forward. It was the kind of nightmare that families read about in headlines, but never thought could reach their own doorstep. For Karlie's parents, the shock was overwhelming. They replayed the previous night in their minds, searching for clues in every detail, wondering if they had missed signs of distress or intention. Had she planned to leave? Had someone lured her away? Or had she simply stepped outside and encountered danger in the shadows of the early morning? Each question only deepened the sense of dread. By the end of that first day, the local police were involved, and the official search began. But already the story was shifting from a missing child to something more chilling. It's the absence of clear evidence, the lack of an immediate trail, and the silence of her phone all suggested that this was no ordinary disappearance. What happened to Karlie in those dark hours between night and morning remained hidden, and the mystery was only just beginning. The search for Karlie began with urgency and determination, as every missing hour felt heavier than the last. Law enforcement coordinated with volunteers, setting up checkpoints and mapping out grids across the desert terrain that surrounded the town. The dry, open landscape stretched endlessly, offering little shelter but countless ways to disappear. Search dogs were brought in, their handlers guiding them through brush and along dirt paths where faint footprints quickly faded under the harsh sun. Helicopters circled overhead, scanning for any sign of movement, while on the ground, neighbors walked side by side, calling out Karlie's name into the silence. The scale of the effort reflected not only the seriousness of the case, but also the deep fear spreading through the community. Despite the intensity of the search, the clues were scarce. A few witnesses came forward with accounts that only added confusion. One neighbor insisted they had seen Karlie walking near the highway at dawn, her figure small against the vast horizon, her steps uneven, almost as if she were dazed or disoriented. Another local driver claimed they saw a girl matching her description sitting on a curb miles away, staring into the distance as though she were waiting for someone. Each story seemed to offer a lead, yet none of them could be confirmed, and none explained where she had gone after. The conflicting reports left investigators with more questions than answers. The desert itself became a challenge, swallowing evidence before it could be gathered. Tracks disappeared in shifting sands, and the relentless heat drained searchers quickly. With so much ground to cover, even the most determined efforts felt like chasing shadows. Volunteers who had known Karlie since childhood felt the strain torn between hope and dread as each hour passed without discovery. For her family, watching the search unfold was agonizing. They clung to every rumor, every tip, desperate to believe she would be found safe, even as the possibilities grew darker. Social media became both a tool and a torment. Friends shared her photo widely, spreading the word far beyond their small town, while strangers from across the country began to speculate about what might have happened. Rumors multiplied at alarming speed, some suggesting she had run away, others insisting she must have been abducted. The digital noise overwhelmed the truth, clouding the investigation with theories that distracted from hard evidence. Yet even false hope was something to cling to when answers refused to come. Days turned into weeks, and the massive effort began to lose momentum. Search teams grew smaller, volunteers had to return to their lives, and the initial urgency gave way to the slow frustration of a cold trail. Still, law enforcement pressed on, reviewing phone records, interviewing anyone who had spoken to Karlie in the days before her disappearance, and retracing her final known steps. But no clear path emerged. Her phone had gone silent the night she vanished, cutting off the one connection that could have provided direction. What lingered most was the haunting image painted by those early witness accounts. A girl walking alone at sunrise, vulnerable and uncertain before vanishing into a vast landscape that offered no answers. The search had uncovered fragments of a story, but no resolution. For her family and for the town, the void left by her disappearance only deepened, leaving behind a sense that something sinister had unfolded just beyond their reach. As the days without Karlie turned into weeks, the silence surrounding her disappearance was filled with speculation. When no concrete evidence surfaced, theories began to multiply, each one more unsettling than the last. In small towns, rumors spread quickly, and soon whispers traveled faster than official updates. Some residents believed Karlie had chosen to run away, convinced she longed to escape the isolation of her desert community. They pointed to her dreams of city life and independence as signs she might have left voluntarily. Others rejected this idea, arguing that a girl who left her wallet, money, and most personal belongings behind could not have planned such a departure. With no clear answers, suspicions began to turn inward. People started to question the night before Karlie vanished. What exactly had taken place in her home? Was there tension in the family that no one had spoken about publicly? Neighbors recalled hearing nothing unusual, yet the absence of noise only deepened the mystery. Online forums dissected every statement made by her parents, comparing interviews for inconsistencies, analyzing gestures, and suggesting that not all truths had been revealed. What began as a search for a missing girl slowly transformed into a case clouded by doubt and suspicion. Investigators tried to cut through the noise. They focused on Karlie's social circle, interviewing friends who described her as restless, but not reckless. Some mentioned she had recently seemed anxious, more withdrawn than usual, as if something weighed heavily on her mind. Others remembered her talking about wanting freedom, though no one could confirm if she had made plans to act on those desires. Every detail offered a possible explanation, yet none of it formed a clear picture. Theories of abduction surfaced, fueled by stories of strangers seen driving through the area in the early morning hours. Was Karlie targeted by someone passing through, taken in a moment of vulnerability when she was alone on the roadside? The lack of physical evidence only fueled the uncertainty. No clothing, no belongings, no trace of struggle had been found. Each dead end amplified the sense that the truth was being hidden, either by circumstance or by people who had not come forward. For Karlie's family, the constant rumors became another layer of pain. While they held on to the hope that she might still be alive, they were forced to endure endless speculation about what they knew or what they might be hiding. The case soon spread beyond the borders of the town, drawing attention from media outlets and online communities fascinated by unsolved mysteries. Strangers debated Karlie's fate, as though it were a puzzle to be solved, each person offering their own theory. Some claimed she had simply vanished into the desert, a victim of the harsh landscape. Others believed she had been taken and was being held against her will. Still others suggested darker explanations closer to home. What was undeniable was that Karlie's story had captured attention far beyond the desert town where it began. She became a symbol of the fragile line between safety and danger, childhood and independence, presence and disappearance. With no answers to quiet the storm of speculation, the case took on a life of its own, one shaped as much by rumor and theory as by the fragments of fact that remained. The deeper people searched for clarity, the more the truth seemed to slip further away, leaving behind a haunting uncertainty that overshadowed every attempt to find her. Investigators clung to any fragment of hope as they continued to follow leads in Karlie's case, but every development seemed to collapse under scrutiny. Early one morning, a hiker discovered a piece of clothing tangled in brush near a ravine on the outskirts of town. For a brief moment, optimism surged that the mystery was finally nearing a breakthrough. The item resembled something Karlie might have worn, and search teams descended on the area with renewed determination. But forensic testing revealed it belonged to someone else entirely, and with that revelation came the crushing weight of disappointment. What seemed like progress had only deepened the sense of futility. A few weeks later, another wave of hope emerged, when a reported sighting placed a girl matching Karlie's description in a town hundreds of miles away. Witnesses insisted she seemed nervous and avoided attention, fueling theories that she might be alive but unwilling or unable to return home. Investigators pursued the lead relentlessly, reviewing surveillance footage and questioning locals. Yet the image on the grainy camera proved inconclusive, and no further evidence tied Karlie to the location. Once again, the trail went cold, leaving her family to endure the painful cycle of hope, rising only to be shattered. Phone records, which investigators had initially believed might unlock crucial answers, offered little clarity. The final pings placed her device near her home, suggesting she hadn't traveled far in those early hours. After that, the signal went silent. There was no trace of texts, calls, or online activity. For a teenager whose phone was rarely out of reach, the abrupt cutoff was alarming. It was as if the digital footprint that usually marked the rhythm of her life had vanished into thin air. The absence of evidence only heightened the torment for those closest to Karlie. Her family clung to the possibility that she might still be alive, but the not knowing became unbearable. Each day without answers felt like a lifetime, and every lead that dissolved into nothingness left scars of disappointment. Some nights they replayed the last moments they saw her, wondering what they might have missed, asking themselves if they could have changed the outcome by noticing one small detail. For the investigators, the case became a haunting presence that refused to let go. Files were reviewed repeatedly, interviews re-examined, and timelines reconstructed, yet no breakthrough arrived. The desert landscape, once filled with searchers and helicopters, grew quiet again, holding tightly to whatever secrets it concealed. The longer the case dragged on, the more fragile hope became, replaced by the heavy weight of frustration and unanswered questions. The haunting part was not just Karlie's disappearance, the way each lead carried with it a flicker of possibility before collapsing into emptiness. The false alarms carved deep emotional wounds, leaving behind exhaustion and despair. With every failed attempt, the sense of a mystery larger than anyone could solve grew stronger. Karlie's case no longer felt like a missing person, search it had transformed into a riddle with pieces scattered so thoroughly that no one could see how they fit together. Years passed, and Karlie's disappearance remained suspended in a state of painful uncertainty. What began as a desperate search gradually turned into an unsolved case that hovered over the community like an unshakable shadow. The desert roads, the open stretches of land, and even the quiet neighborhoods seemed to whisper her name. For her family, the wound never healed. Every birthday that went by without her, every holiday where her chair remained empty, deepened the ache. The absence was constant, and it shaped their lives in ways that outsiders could never fully understand. The authorities never closed the case, but over time the investigation slowed. Detectives rotated in and out, each new set of eyes reviewing the old files, hoping for a fresh perspective. Some believed the answers were buried in the statements given during the earliest days, hidden in overlooked details that might connect if examined differently. Others were convinced that technology would one day unlock what was invisible before, advancements in forensic science. New tracking methods, or databases that could link information across jurisdictions. Yet, despite those hopes, the official record remained unchanged. Karlie Guse missing, her fate unknown. As the years stretched on, the story became larger than the town itself. True crime communities across the internet adopted Karlie's case as one of their own mysteries to unravel. Podcasts dissected every timeline, video channels pieced together maps of her last known movements, and online discussions theorized endlessly about what could have happened. Some pointed to the possibility of foul play, convinced that her disappearance was not voluntary, but the result of something sinister. Others clung to the idea that she might have chosen to disappear, perhaps starting a new life somewhere far away, her reasons forever private. For her loved ones, these theories were a double-edged sword. On one hand, they kept Karlie's story alive, ensuring she was never forgotten. On the other, they often strayed into accusations and speculation that deepened the family's suffering. Strangers, hidden behind screens, debated her parents' actions, her personality, and even her possible state of mind. In the absence of truth, imagination filled the void, but it offered no comfort to those who longed for answers. Despite the noise, one fact remained unshakable. A 16-year-old girl had vanished, and no one could say where she had gone or why. The lack of closure weighed heavily not only on her family but also on the community that had once rallied to find her. The case lingered like unfinished business, a constant reminder that safety was fragile and that some questions may never be resolved. The mystery of Karlie Guse became less about a single night and more about the enduring power of unanswered questions. Each year, vigils were held, candles lit in her honor, her name spoken aloud in the hope that someone, somewhere, might know something. Though time had marched forward, the ache of not knowing remained fixed in place. For those closest to her, the search for truth never truly ended. It was carried in every memory, in every quiet moment, and in every shadow of the desert that had swallowed her without a trace.